What's up, guys? It's currently Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Free agency has been live for about 15 hours. So, as in most years, most of the deals get done within the first 24 hours. We already have a lot to cover. So, I'm going to hand out grades for every single free agency signing that's been reported so far. The only clarification before we get started is in my grading system, a B is an average deal. So, if I give a signing a B, that means, okay, you didn't overpay for him, but you also didn't really get a bargain. You know, it's a signing that makes sense. Let's get started. Kyrie Irving re-signing in Dallas, 3 years, 126 million, player option third year. I'm giving this a B. So the value by itself for a player like Kyrie is actually quite good. And I really like that the Mavs made it a 3-year deal instead of a 4-year deal because Kyrie is 31 years old. It's not out of the question that towards that third and fourth year, he's going to start to really fall off in his production. So the value on paper to me is actually a B+. The reason I'm giving this a B only is I am not sure who the Mavericks were betting against. It feels like the Mavericks could have gotten a better deal given that they had more leverage in this negotiation. We're staying in Dallas. Dallas also signed Seth Curry, 2 years, $9 million. I'm giving this an A-. Seth Curry's been in Dallas before. He's played with Luka before. He's a great off-ball player. If he can give you 15 minutes in big games, that's already great value for $5 million a year. Brooklyn re-signs Cam Johnson, 4 years, $108 million. I'm giving this a C+. It's definitely an overpay, but it's justifiable if you think Cam Johnson will get better. I mean, Cam Johnson is only in his fifth year in the league. What worries me, though, and the reason why I graded this low, is because I'm not sure Cam Johnson can stay healthy. Cam Johnson has played 4 years in the league, and his total games played each season have been 57, 60, 66, and 42. That's kind of alarming for a young player. Denver Nuggets re-signed DeAndre Jordan, 1 year, $3 million. A. It's a minimum contract. Jordan is mostly a locker room vet, and at times a replacement for Jokic in the regular season when Jokic gets injured or has to rest. Jordan also played a few minutes in the playoffs and didn't look that bad. Denver also re-signed Reggie Jackson, 2 years, $10 million. I'm giving this a D. Reggie Jackson looked washed last year. Maybe Denver sees something that I don't, but if they saw something in him, why didn't they play him? Reggie Jackson did not crack their playoff rotation at all last year. If you're Denver, why would you then use your mid-level exception on Reggie Jackson? There are 10 guys that just signed minimum contracts that I would rather pay $5 million a year for than Reggie Jackson. Cleveland signs George Niang, 3 years, $26 million. I'm giving this an A-. He can shoot. Cleveland needs shooting, and Cleveland particularly needed a big wing who could shoot. A big reason they got trounced by New York in the playoffs last year was because their spacing with Mobley and Allen were terrible. Not to mention Garland and Mitchell, who also like to get into paint and operate around the basket in the mid-range area. So the fit here is really good. The value is good. A-. Cleveland also re-signs Karis LeVert, 2 years, $32 million. I'm giving this a B+. LeVert is their best perimeter defender, shot 39% from 3 last year. And this contract is also very tradable. And Cleveland is definitely one of the teams that I think is very much looking to make some big moves. So I wouldn't be surprised if LeVert gets dealt. Chicago re-signs Kobe White, 3 years, $33 million, up to 40 with incentives. I'm giving this an A-. I love Kobe White. Dude can play. Almost single-handedly eliminated the Heat in that play-in game. I think White doesn't get nearly enough opportunities playing behind Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, but hopefully the Bulls actually trade LaVine and we can see what Kobe White can do with the ball, because I think Kobe White has real potential. Chicago also signs Javon Carter, 3 years, $20 million. I'm giving this a B-. Carter's a fine player. He shoots the three. He plays defense. He's a good fit on the Bulls. They need a guard who can do those things. But he's 27 years old. There's no upside to the signing. And he's also 6'1". And size becomes a bigger issue in the playoffs. Carter in the series against Miami this year saw his minutes slashed in half. And the year before that, when Milwaukee lost to Boston, he was playing 7 minutes per game. So you're paying $7 million a year for a guy who maybe cracks the playoff rotation on a good team. Like, okay, I mean, it's not the worst. Los Angeles Lakers. Okay, now all of my grades for the Lakers are contingent on them being able to re-sign Austin Reeves. If they can't re-sign Austin Reeves, then every single re-signing here I'm giving an F. But okay, assuming they keep Reeves, Roy Hachimura, 3 years, $51 million. I'm giving this a B. Hachimura played well in the playoffs, but Was that a fluke? I mean, maybe. And this is a guy who shot 29% from three in the regular season for the Lakers. But he is really young, and he does have the physical tools to take his game to another level. So I don't mind slightly overpaying for the upside here. Gabe Vincent, 3 years, $33 million. I'm giving this a C+. There are too many examples of role players who play great on teams with good systems like Miami's or San Antonio's back in the day when they were still contenders. And then they go to other teams and they drastically underperform. So yeah, the Gabe Vincent that just helped Miami get to the finals, is that player worth $11 million a year? Yeah, absolutely. But is he going to be that player on the Lakers? I'm a little bit worried. Cam Reddish, 2 years, $4 million, B-. Listen, I am not a Cam Reddish fan at all. I do not believe he can be a real rotation player on a good team. But it's a minimum contract, so there's no way I can give a minimum contract, lower than B-. Lakers also signed Taurean Prince, 1 year, $4 million, A-. Prince is a good three-point shooter with plenty of playoff experience, and I'm shocked the Lakers got him for only $4 million. I know the Timberwolves declined his option for $7.5 million, but I thought that's just because they wanted to move on with a different option. I was pretty confident Prince would have gotten that same amount of around $7 to $8 million per year from another team, but maybe Taurean Prince just got tired of LeBron beating him every year and now wants to join him. Miami re-signs Kevin Love, 2 years, $7.6 million, A-. Kevin Love gave them some really good minutes in the playoffs last year, and he is getting really old, so there's a good chance he's going to fall off a cliff, but that's why it's only a 2-year deal. There's not that much risk here. Miami also signed Josh Richardson, 2 years, $6 million. I'm giving this an A+. So Josh Richardson was drafted by the Heat. He played for them early in his career, and there is no doubt in my mind that Spoelstra is going to have this guy playing 15 to 20 quality minutes per game during the playoffs. This is the steal of free agency so far. In Golden State, Draymond Green re-signed for 4 years, $100 million. I'm giving this a B. So funny story, I actually predicted this exact contract, 4 years, $100 million, on Twitter 2 weeks before free agency. So I'm just saying, I mean, if you're not following me on Twitter already, like, come on. I'm just out there predicting the future, just casually. Bragging aside, in the tweet, I explained that Draymond Green is not nearly worth as much to any other team as he is to the Warriors. So to the Warriors, he absolutely is worth this amount of money. But the reason why I can't give this an above average grade is because there really is no other team in the NBA that is ready to offer Draymond Green like more money, because everybody understands Draymond is just so good in that Golden State system. It is worth it for Golden State to pay him this amount of money to keep the core intact. And speaking of which, let's go to Milwaukee. Chris Middleton signed for 3 years, $102 million. I'm going to give this also a B, the same grade I gave the Draymond signing because it's very similar. Yes, Middleton had a bad year. He's had a lot of injuries, but he also helped you win a championship not too long ago. Continuity matters. Okay, Houston signed Fred VanVleet, 3 years, $128 million. I'm giving this a C-. So on paper, this contract is pretty horrible. VanVleet should not be worth $40 million a year. More importantly, I do not understand why Houston signed him at all. Like, okay, I understand Houston had cap space. Why not spend that money on, Seth Curry and Joe Ingles and other veteran role players that are going to help space the floor? Now, the reason I didn't give this an F or D is because VanVleet will make them more competitive next year. The Rockets just hired Ime Udoka, who is trying to build a winning culture there. And I do think there is value for rebuilding teams to actually try to win some games, even if they're still a long shot to even make the playoffs. There's value in teaching the young guys how to win, and how to play, how to win games. So from that perspective, I understand it a little bit. I still do not like the signing though. Indiana signed Bruce Brown, 2 years, $45 million. I'm giving this a B+. Now, I understand it is a lot of money for a role player, albeit a very good role player who was a very highly sought after commodity. But the context here matters. The Pacers had money. They had cap space to spend. And who else were they going to spend money on? I mean, like Fred VanVleet, you know what I mean? They already have Buddy Hield and Halliburton. They have their backcourt set. So Bruce Brown is actually a good fit for them. Also, the fact that this is a 2-year contract for a player like Brown who can fit into any team makes him a very easy to trade value piece. And you got in Indiana, you got all these rumors surrounding Miles Turner and Buddy Hield trade rumors. It is very possible that Indiana could package Bruce Brown into those two to make some big moves during the season. Keep an eye out for that. Memphis signs Derrick Rose, 2 years, $6 million. I'll give this a B+. I don't know if Derrick Rose really has anything left in the tank, but again, it's a minimum contract. The Grizzlies definitely need some point guards during those first 25 games when Ja will be serving his suspension. Minnesota signs Troy Brown Jr., 2 years, $8 million. C+. Listen, I ended up watching a lot of Lakers games last year. I really enjoyed rooting for them in the playoffs. And every time Troy Brown Jr. touched the ball, I shouted at my TV. I think this guy is, at best, a rotation player in the regular season, not in the playoffs. Just not a fan. But he is young. He could develop. So maybe he gets better. Who knows? Minnesota re-signs Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2 years, $9 million. I'm giving this a B. I don't really know how to feel about Walker. His defense is great. His offense is very, very shaky. But again, he's young, so there's upside here. So I don't hate it. Minnesota also signed Shake Milton, 2 years, $10 million. B-. I'm not a huge fan of this, but like it's okay. It's okay. I mean, they could use a guard, so it's okay. New Orleans re-signed Herb Jones, 4 years, $54 million. I'm giving this an A-. I really like the value they got for Herb Jones for a guy who has not even scratched his ceiling yet as a player. If he takes that next step, this contract in the next year or two could look like one of the best value contracts in the whole league. Jeremy Grant re-signed in Portland for 5 years, $160 million. I am giving this a C. This is definitely an overpay. I do not want Blazers fans telling me how, he shot 40% from three and he averaged 20 points per game. This is an overpay for a 29-year-old that has very likely already hit his ceiling as a player. Sacramento re-signed Trey Lyles, 2 years, $16 million. A-. I really like this value. Lyles was good for them last year. He did well in the playoffs as well. I would have loved it more if they could have gotten him for 4 years instead of just 2, but I understand that Lyles, who's still young, probably wanted only a 2-year deal so he can be a free agent again. Washington re-signed Kyle Kuzma, 4 years, $102 million. B+. Honestly, this is a lot less than what I thought he was going to get. I thought he was going to get 3 years, $102 million. Like, okay, so listen, the Wizards had money to spend. They should be trying to tank next year. And what better way to tank than have Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole jack up 50 shots a game? We love to see it. Toronto re-signs Jakob Poeltl, 4 years, $80 million. I'm giving this a B. This actually feels like an overpay because, again, what other team is going to give Jakob Poeltl this contract? But the reason I have it at a B instead of a B- is because Toronto did give up some assets to trade for him. So when you do that, you kind of have to keep him. It's kind of with the Kyrie thing. You know, when you make a mid-season trade for a guy who's about to be a free agent, you know, you're kind of forced to do whatever you can by keeping that guy, because otherwise, what's the point if you just have him for 1 year? Dennis Schroeder also signed in Toronto for 2 years, $25 million. I'm giving this a B as well. I would have much preferred to see Toronto go get a veteran guard that could actually shoot the 3-ball well, because I think they need some spacing on that team. Phoenix signed a bunch of guys to minimum contracts, and I'm not even going to bother giving grades here because Phoenix is so hard up against the cap that they can pretty much only hand out minimum contracts. So there's not a whole lot to grade here, but collectively for all these guys, I'll give them a B+. I particularly like Bates Diop and Watanabe. I think those are really good fits on the Suns team. Damian Lee, Okogie, Eubanks, maybe they get Landale back. That is still the worst bench out of any contender in the NBA. However, given the context, given that they don't have any financial flexibility, I actually think they did pretty well here. Orlando signed Joe Ingles, 2 years, $22 million. I'll give this a B+. Listen, like Joe Ingles is 35 years old. Is he really worth $11 million? Like, probably not, but he is what the Orlando needs. A veteran role player. He shoots the 3-ball well. He'll try hard on defense, set an example for the young guys. So I like the fit. San Antonio re-signed Trey Jones, 2 years, $20 million. I'm giving this a C+. Like, listen, I do not think that tiny 6'1" Trey Jones who can't hit a 3-ball is worth $10 million. But San Antonio has the money to spend, and they got plenty of time to build around Wemby. So this very much feels just like a continuity contract for me, and it's only 2 years, so no big deal. San Antonio also re-signed Julian Champagnie, 4 years, $12 million. To be honest, I did not know that this player existed before doing this video. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit that. I had to Google this guy. Apparently, Champagnie was an undrafted rookie who played a few games for the Sixers, then went to the G League, then got waived, then got picked up by the Spurs and played 15 games for the Spurs. Given that I know nothing about this player, I'm going to give this re-signing an A+, because his name sounds a lot like champagne, and it's going to remind Victor Wembanyama of France, and it's really going to help build the Spurs chemistry. So yeah, there you go. There's my objective basketball analysis for the day. See you next time.